أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عبس وتولى أن جاءه الأعمى وما يدريك لعله يزكى أو يذكر فتنفعه الذكرى أما من استغنى فأنت له تصدى وما عليك ألا يزكى وأما من جاءك يسعى وهو يخشى فأنت عنه تلهى كلا إنها تذكرة فمن شاء ذكره في صحف مكرمة مرفوعة مطهرة بأيدي سفرة كرام بررة قتل الإنسان ما أكفره من أي شيء خلقه من نطفة خلقه فقدره ثم السبيل يسره ثم أماته فأقبره ثم إذا شاء أنشره كلا لما يقض ما أمره فلينظر الإنسان إلى طعامه أنا صببنا الماء صبا ثم شققنا الأرض شقا فأنبتنا فيها حبا وعنبا وقضبا وزيتونا ونخلا وحدائق غلبا وفاكهة وأبا متاعا لكم ولأنعامكم فإذا جاءت الصاخة يوم يفر المرء من أخيه وأمه وأبيه وصاحبته وبنيه لكل امرئ منهم يومئذ شأن يغنيه وجوه يومئذ مسفرة ضاحكة مستبشرة ووجوه يومئذ عليها غبرة ترهقها فترة أولئك هم الكفرة الفجرة صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على Thank you so much for the lesson, for the info recitation. Thank you for this tonight's program. If you're not learning this, we ask that you only do, or we're operating on our team right now. So we begin the program. Alhamdulillah, we're pleased to have Sheikh Ehsan Ahmadi, who's visiting us from Mashhad, Iran. He'll be here for 2 weeks, inshallah. So this series of lectures will begin here at MFT first, then there will be one at IPAS on Sunday, and then next week there's a program at Kota, and followed by the program by him at Bashir on Friday and Saturday. So please take benefit of his time, and Allah benefit from it. Without further ado, we'll begin the lecture series by Sheikh. I think all that's on my phone. So with the outside of inshallah, we'll invite Sheikh to the
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وأما بعد فقد قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فلنحيينه حياة طيبة ولنجزينهم أجرهم بأحسن ما كانوا يعملون. Whoever acts righteously, whether male or female, should he be faithful, we shall provide them with a good life, pay them the reward by the best of what they do. Dear brothers and sisters, mu'minin and mu'minat, jami'an, assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us His bounty, His ni'mah, tawfiq, to participate in a majlis with the beautiful name of Allah, His saying on His banner. Among the true followers of Allah, saying by reciting the statement of the salawat. And inshallah, we can express our deepest and most sincere of condolences to the heart of Imam Zaman Ta'ala Barak al-Sharif for the murder and Shahadat of Imam Sajjad and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the extra blessing for tonight. Inshallah, we can benefit from the teaching of our fourth beloved Imam as well by reciting the loudest of salawats. I think that goes for the fifth salawat. اللهم صل على علي بن الحسين سيد العابدين الذي استخلصته لنفسك وجعلت منه أئمة الهدى الذين يهدون بالحق وبه يعدلون الذي اخترته لنفسك وطهرته من الرجس واصطفيته وجعلته ضاهيا مهديا اللهم صل عليه أفضل ما صليت على أحد من ذرية أنبيائك حتى يبلغ به ما تضر به عينه في الدنيا والآخرة إنك عزيز حكيم.
So Alhamdulillah, the verse which I recited at the beginning of the lecture, it talks about a great, perhaps we can say topic, among the best topics within the matter of religion, and that is the topic of Hayatun Tayyibah, this pure life. So what the Quran is telling us, it is saying that Man amila salihan min dhakarin aw untha. Whoever does a good deed, whether being male or female, wa huwa mu'minun, with this condition, that he or she is in the condition of Iman and the condition of faith, فَلَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبَةً. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him or her this new set of life, or this new set of living, in which it is called the hayatan tayyibah. وَلَنَجْزِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْرَهُمْ بِأَحْسَنِ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them the rewards and give them the bounties for all of the stuff that, or all of the great deeds that they have done. So inshallah, in the upcoming nights, I would like to talk about this a little bit more. Why is this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the second life, which it is referred to as the pure life? Because we know by default that all of us are living, all of us are alive. We're breathing, we're working, we're going to school, we come to masjid, we do all of this stuff, so technically we're alive. Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayah, after mentioning, like a person, whoever does a good deed, if he or she has iman, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant them, this new set of life. So as if like we have two different ways of living. One we can call the normal, or the existence, as we talk about it, just basically being alive in terms of the physical sign and physical aspect of it. So in a way we grow, we become older, and we gain more experience, we gain more of the education and more of the virtues as we live. And we have this second way of life, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to as hayatan tayyibah. That is this purified life. That is the actual life. That is the true living versus just existing. So if you want to talk about this a little bit more, you can see that number one, when we talk about this true living versus just existing, the matter of gender goes out of the window. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to this ayah and is talking about the true living, it says it doesn't matter whether the person is male or female. So we have this sense of equality for both genders. At the same time, there is this big condition that says, it has to be happening in a condition that a person has faith, has iman. Meaning if the person is not a believer, because sometimes this question is common. We see so many people who assume that they're not a believer. When we talk to them, they introduce themselves as someone who's like an atheist, or as an agnostic person. Someone who does not believe in spirituality or higher form of being. But then when we look at their life, we see that they're, mashallah, extremely ethical. So they do a lot of good deeds. They do a lot of amal salihah. So what happens to them? Or what will be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's judgment on them? Correct? In this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is specifically talking about those people who are at the stage of iman, meaning they believe in the hereafter, they believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they believe in the topic of the Buddha or the Prophet. Now at the stage of iman, they continue to do good. So among these people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant them that hayatan tayyibah, meaning that hayat, that life, that living, that is completely pure, or I would use this term, that is a true living versus just existing. So when we look at this, again, we see that there is a sense of equality between the both genders. The stage of iman becomes a condition, number two. And number three, the topic of amal salih, the topic of a good deed, finds matter or importance within this ayah. So when we look at this, and we take a look at the tafasir, what has been mentioned for the hayatan tayyibah, they use different examples for it. Some say it is, the daily provisioning or the rizq that one person may get. That is what we refer to as hayatan tayyibah. Others say, no, it is when a person starts to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala while he or she is earning a halal income, a halal rizq. The third group, they talk about, having this blessing or this chance and tawfiq to be able to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and do not go away or do not, cross past the boundaries of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they maintain, the wajibat and muharramat. If this happens, the person has gained the hayat and tayyibah. And the last one, it says, no, it mainly talks about, that halal, rizq in a general form. Sometimes we talk about halal rizq and we only mean the money or the income that we earn. Sometimes we talk about it in a general form, meaning whatever thing that we gain, the life that we have, the family that we have, the children that we have, the education that we have, every single bounty that we have gained from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has come to us through a halal way. And what's the sign of that? we get a chance to actually spend it on halal, not to spend it on haram, or not to keep it for ourselves. That's a sign of something being halal. It has the barakah with it. So there are different views in terms of what is the hayat and tayyibah, but again, great tafasir and great mufassirin, they say that all of these, different views that I just mentioned, these are all just example of what hayat and tayyibah could be. But what actually is more important is the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning a second life. It is mentioning the second stage of life, the second level of life. As if like there is this general way or general level of living in which everybody is common, whether believer or non-believer. But Allah is telling us about this second level, which is happening simultaneously with this first level. But it is for those who do good deed while they are in that stage of Iman. So what are the signs of this hayat and tayyibah? One great example, Abu Abdullah Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, on the very last minute of his blissful life, as he was laying on the plains of Karbala, he has a famous quote. He says, Allahi sabran ala alaik, wala ma'buda sawak, ya riyat al-mustaqim. Oh Allah, I'll be patient on whatever you decree and on whatever you will for, wala ma'buda sawak. And I do not worship anything except for you, ya riyat al-mustaqim. Oh, the one who answers to those who seek help and who seek refuge. So in a way, when we look at this, if you look at it from a general perspective, Imam Hussein is in a condition that from the early time of the day of Ashura, he has gone through so many masa'ib. For 3 days, he has not had a single drop of water. And for from early morning, he has seen all of his beloved ones, all of his relatives, all of the companions go one by one and become murdered on the path of Allah subhanahu. So as we go along the day of Ashura, we see musibat after musibat after musibat after musibat, let alone whatever that happens to Imam Hussein, after the noon of Ashura and the entire maqta that mashallah everybody has read inshallah on the day of Ashura. At that stage, the only thing that the Imam is saying is just saying, Allahi sabran ala qadalik. So once again, when we look at it from a general perspective, how is this possible? For someone such as Imam Hussein, in that condition, being wounded, as they say, it was at least 110 wounds when they were counting. So imagine if you just take a piece like a knife and you start stabbing yourself 110 times. By the 110 times, would you find yourself in any condition to say, oh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I thank you for everything that you have given me? 110 times just with a simple, like a small knife. Now, in that condition, Imam Hussein is saying, oh Allah, I'll be patient, whatever you have destined for me, whatever you have provisioned for me. So this is one example. For the second example, when Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, when that Mal'un ibn Muljam, if he rushed towards him and he struck on the head of Amir al-Mu'mineen, it wasn't like Amir al-Mu'mineen would say something about a pain or complain about a pain or saying that finally somebody came and the news have become true. No, the very first thing he was saying, he was praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and giving his salam towards the angels and towards the Holy Prophet as if he's been expecting this to happen. So is it that that they do not feel the pain? They're sort of in a way of being immortal, that no matter what happens to them, they constantly, do not see the material aspect of it. They do not sense the feeling of it, but rather all they see is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or is it that no, at the same time that they're living the very same general lives that we have, they have, they're benefiting from this hayat and tayyibah, in which is that second level. That their soul and their spirit and their nafs is constantly focused on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To the extent that a lot of masa'ib for them, although they are great in terms of the pain and in terms of the suffering, but it will not be able to move their attention and their focus from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To give you a very clear example, let's say I'm driving my car, I'm going on the highway. So in a normal, when I drive normally, I don't pay attention, for example, to how much I perhaps press the gas or brake. It just goes naturally. Right? I don't pay attention to what gear I have to put my, for example, if I drive a stick shift car, what gear I put my car in. So it just goes by, in a natural way. But all of a sudden, if something happens, if somebody like cuts you off, if another like speed chasing comes after you, we start to be like more cautious and we start to look around ourselves. We start to hold on to the wheel a little bit stronger, make sure we watch over like left and right side. In a way, we get focused on whatever like the vehicle that we are in. In a normal, in the daily affairs that we have, the same thing. A lot of times we tend to go on our like daily habits. Like we get up in the morning, we have the same daily routine all the way to the night, and the next day, and the next day, and the next week, the next month. So we don't realize how fast the time is passing by. So there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of the mercy that He has for most of us, He gives us this problem, this calamity, this pain, perhaps, this testing, just to make sure that we focus and we regroup our attention on what? On the very same fact that everything that we own, and including ourselves, are actually a position of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In order for us to gain this focus, we get tested with different calamities. Now, here comes the question. If this is the case, if this is the philosophy of all the problems, or all the like the calamities in the world, all the masa'ib that one person may see, all of the testing, then can we do something to, in a way, to enhance this development, enhance this growth and elevation? Can we do something in a way that we can benefit more out of all of the mercies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be able to like actually get closer to this hayat and tayyibah? Or should we just like be still and go about our daily lives and then say, okay, if anything's supposed to happen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will like make it happen for us? So they say, the mu'min is kayyis, the mu'min is a smart person. So he tries to take advantage of the situation in a way that he will gain or she will gain the most amount of outcome in terms of spirituality, not in terms of the dunya. And in the fact, like when you recite the Ziyarat al-Arba'in, 3 lines, they always, a lot of like, the scholars when they go on the minbar, they refer to these 3 lines a lot, in which we recite, وَبَذَلَ مُهْجَتَهُ فِيهِ لِيَسْتَنْبِذَ عِبَادَكَ مِنَ الْجَهَالَةِ وَحَيْرَةِ الضَّلَالَةِ. O Abu Abdullah, you are the one who sacrifices blood on the way of Allah to awaken and save people from ignorance and doubts of diversion. Then on the second line recite, وَقَدْ تَوَازَرَ عَلَيْهِ مَنْ غَرَّتْهُ الدُّنْيَا. Who lined up against Abu Abdullah, saying, who were the ones who joined the side of Umar Asad and Ibn Ziyad? The one, عَلَيْهِمْ مَنْ غَرَّتْهُ الدُّنْيا. The one who were fooled by the dunya. Then on the third line, we say, وَضَعَ حَدَّهُ بِالْأَرَضِ الْأَدْنَى وَشَرَى آخِرَتَهُ بِالثَّمَنِ الْأَوْكَاسِ. They sold their share of dunya to the worst and the least of all things, and they also sold their hereafter to the least of items. In a way, very quick, like, we can say, notes on the part that what were the criterions, what were the characters of those who stood against Imam al-Hussein on the tragedy of Karbala. Number one, the people who the dunya had fooled them. So what does it mean the dunya had fooled them? When we hear this, we would say, okay, I'm not fooled by the dunya, and perhaps I'm in charge of the dunya. I know exactly what I want to do in 20 years. I know exactly what I'm going to be doing in 30 years. And I have all of these plans. So there's no way that the dunya has fooled me. But was the same story for those who actually took the side against Imam al-Hussein? So that becomes the challenging part. So we have to see whether we fall within this category of those, which dunya has fooled or not, number one. And number two, when they get fooled by the dunya, they do this exchange, they do this business transaction. And this business transaction, what do they sell? They sell themselves. What do they gain? They gain the least amount, or the worst item in terms of value, instead of their life that they're giving, both in this dunya and the akhirah. So that means it's very important. That means it's like, that becomes like the number one perhaps question that all of us should be asking ourselves. Am I one of those who've been fooled by the dunya? Am I one of those that, have been taken away, with this norm and with this stream of the mundane world? Or, alhamdulillah, subhanallah, or the thanks to Allah, among those who was able to actually overcome the tricks and this, planning and plots of the dunya. What's the sign of it? How can I go about this? How can I make sure that I constantly be on the side that the dunya would not find any way over me? So these are the questions that we should ask ourselves on a daily basis, not on a monthly or every Muharram or every Arba'in or every month of Ramadan. No, these are the stuff that we have to ask ourselves on a daily basis. Why? Just start with the little things. Little choices that we make lead to like higher or bigger choices, and those bigger choices are the ones which actually define, which side we will end up. And again, a lot of these examples within the companions of Imam Hussein and how they were ready to make this sacrifice despite of what condition they were put into. Because they have realized what is that, that important factor when it comes to making a decision. A lot of times we make decisions based on our experience. We say, okay, I know this, I've studied this, I have a degree in this, I have done my consultation. So I choose this approach, or I choose this choice, I take this school, I take that job. A lot of times we go according to our preferences, our likings. I like this place better than the other place. I like this food better than the other food. I like this, for example, spice better than the other spice. Sometimes we go about it when we think about it in terms of spiritual matters. We start thinking that to say, okay, this has more sawab and this one has less sawab, so I'll pick this one. Some people, when we think about it, that what kind of an action will give them more power or more, let's say money, more status, more popularity. So different criteria when it comes to making that decision within our lives. And every day, how many decisions are we making? Allah, an infinite amount of decisions. And who is going to get benefit from the decisions that we make? Nobody except our own selves. Whatever we do comes back to ourselves. Whatever we say comes back to ourselves. So if this is the case, shouldn't we find this, perhaps what we can say, the unique criterion that will cover all of our decisions in a path that will inshallah get us closer to this hayatan tayyibah, versus just following different paths. Because what happens if I do try and error? I have only so much of the time to spend, and if I continue to do try and error, I cannot move, I cannot elevate, I cannot make that growth. I have to make sure I take the right path, and I make sure that I apply it as much as I can so that I can finish in time. Because it's not only about being in the right path, but it's actually about moving on the right path. And perhaps that's something we may tend to forget about. Because when we come to Masjid of Imam Hussein, mashallah, all it is sawab and bounties and hasanat, and it talks about the forgiveness of the sins. Even as you start walking from your house to the Masjid of Imam Hussein, when you look at the riwayat, it has so many of bounties and sawabs that if you just read them, we go through the riwayats about doing a ziyarat of Imam Hussein, not talking about Imam Hussein himself, but just going to the ziyarat of Allah, or going to the Masjid of Imam Hussein, as if your mind just goes, it becomes, it gets bloated. So many of sawab, so many of rewards. At the same time, you have to make sure that once we go and we attend, let's say, the 10 days of Muharram, we don't take this as granted and say, okay, I have done enough for 10 days. That will be enough for 10 years of my life. I have done enough on the day of Ashura. I have cried for Imam Hussein. I have mourned for Imam Hussein. That should keep me secure and give me that insurance for the rest of the year. No, it is, as we say, it is a jumping point. We want to take advantage of the days of Muharram, of the day of Ashura, and the days of Safar, in order to make that elevation within ourselves. So in a way to shake up our souls, to shake up our nafs, in a way to awaken the heart that we have, and to keep it awakened. A lot of times we do a lot of good things, but right after we finish the good things, our famous enemy, the shaitan, he doesn't leave us alone. Keeps on coming back and he does his whisper. He's a professional. He's an expert enemy, a sworn enemy with, mashallah, so many years of experience. It becomes very difficult to beat him when we think about it one by one, right? How many years of experience we have? How many years of experience he has? How many of army, the number of people he has? How many of army do we have? We have one person that's in the middle of all of this, and he, mashallah, the armies of ins wal jinn, the armies of human and the jinn. So when we look at it, he's constantly waiting to get back at us. So a lot of times we do a good deed, we come to Masjid of Imam Hussein, we go to, for example, commemoration of Imam Hussein, we actually cry for Imam Hussein. So everything is forgiven, yes, alhamdulillah. Then immediately, right after the majlis, we get in the habit of, because we feel secure about it, we feel good about it. So now we start doing the stuff that we should not be doing. We cross past the boundaries of religion. We may start to do like riba, we may start to do backbiting. We may start to talk about spreading rumors. We may start to talk about talk about the different negative characters that one person may have within the community. Or as we go out, again, because we feel that sense of security, I cry for Imam, I was saying, everything is clear. Now, on top of the world, I can do whatever I want. So we start going and talk about everything, all of these thoughts and all of these words that we actually say and think, they have their own effects as well. So a lot of good effort. At the same time, we just send one single fire and everything gets destroyed. So again, we have to put this in a constant process, in a constant movement. And that's the beauty of it. Because a lot of times when it comes to the matter of teachings of religion, and this is, again, a question we're asked a lot. We tend to look for one specific act that we can do, and with that specific act, it will be finished. As if we want to graduate. So we are constantly looking for that last, units, that last class that you have to take in order to graduate and throw our heads our path to the sky and say, okay, alhamdulillah, we have become 100% Muslims. But it doesn't work that way. It's a gradual process in which everybody within the community is growing. Everybody within the society of the Muslims are growing. Everybody within the society of Mu'mineen and Mu'minat are growing. And this growth has to continue. We cannot just make it like a temporary, for example, 10 days or 1 month of Ramadan and say, okay, alhamdulillah, I have gained so much. There is no need for me to watch out or watch over my actions anymore. Makes sense in which he says, Inna ulil albab alladhina amilu bil fikra hatta warithu minhu hubb Allah. Imam Sajjad says, Inna ulil albab, the ones who are have benefiting from the intellect, the ones who are elite in terms of the faith, alladhina amilu bil fikra, are those who actually think, are those who actually contemplate, are those who do ta'afful. They continue this contemplation, they continue this matter of thinking, to the point that they reach the outcome or the result of love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So everything that happens within their life, whether it could be like normal daily stuff that we do, or going to the majlis of Imam the same, or doing trying to get a better job, or trying to anything that we do within the life. If you think about this, if you try to find that relationship or the connection between whatever you're doing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you realize that connection, we fall within this category in which Imam Sajjad is telling us. إِنَّ أُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ الَّذِينَ عَمِلُوا بِالْفِكْرَةِ حَتَّى وَرِثُوا مِنْهُ حُبَّ اللَّهِ. So as if we have to put this review, okay, alhamdulillah, from this morning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me one extra day. So how did I spend this, this 24 hours? How much of these hours was I sleeping? How much of these hours was I actually in the stage of awareness? How many hours of this 24 hours did I actually spend on the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And how many of these hours, may Allah forbid, I spent on the path against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? If you just do a simple analysis here and we do a simple deduction, at the end of the day, we know at what stage we're in. Therefore, we can actually do a true repentance and we can actually build upon this. Inshallah. So this is, again, one thing that we have to constantly focus on, and in order to make sure that we continue the path in which Ahlul Bayt have come to teach us. And that's the message from the Ahlul Bayt. I mean, it has a lot of details and it has a lot of branches, but the main message that the Ahlul Bayt have brought us is to continue on that Sirat al-Mustaqim, on that direct path, until you actually reach the destination, until we actually we actually reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's how we have to continue on this path. And of course, the biggest enemy, the shaitan, and what are the means that he uses, what are the tools that he uses the most, is a matter of the dunya or the mundane world. So that's why it becomes tricky. I mean, one of the riwayats, they talk about this, like, having this character of wanting to have superiority over, like, everybody else. So they say to the extent that one person may feel that they are superior to another person when they look at their lace of their shoe, and then they make a comparison between their shoelace to another person's or another brother's, like, shoelace. And they tell themselves, oh, my, for example, shoelace is better than his. Something that's like, that doesn't have any worth or any value. But we make a comparison. By this comparison, we tend to see ourselves a little bit better. This sense of finding ourselves a little bit better than somebody else, that's when the shaitan has taken over, our entire nafs. So when it comes to the community, we see this quite a lot. We see that this community, finds itself in a competition with another community. This center with another center, that center with another center. Oh, we have this speaker, oh, we have that speaker, oh, we have this, reciter, oh, we have that reciter, right? So as if like everybody is trying to find superiority over the other center or other mosque, but in reality, it should be completely the opposite. All the centers, if they are there, they should be able to help each other out, to make sure that the quality of the programs goes much higher in a way that everybody benefits from the best of the qualities. So this way, you put everything that you have in the same basket, and again, the results of it will be like, multiple more in terms of just going all alone and like independently. So that's why, they always say like, a lot of times, or in the past, there was a lot of like, majalis at homes. So people will have like majlis imams, at their house. So some they could afford it, some could not. Some they have a big house, some had a smaller house. So in terms of facilities and in terms of finances, people would vary. So a lot of Akhlaqi scholars, they say, it's not about how many times I am going to be able to like have a majlis of Imam Hussein, but sometimes it is about how much I can help another brother or another sister to have a majlis of Imam Hussein without, my name being on, this majlis. Very famous story, I think it's one of the caravans that they were going to Hajj. One of the rich people was in the caravan, and every manzil, because the olden days they would go from manzil to manzil, meaning they would like walk for some hours, they would rest, the next day they would continue. Every manzil they would stop, this rich man, this well-off, this successful man, he would slaughter like a couple of sheep and he would distribute the meat among all the hajis. And he was thinking to himself that I'm doing so much, so many good things, because in every manzil, I'm like, slaughtering a sheep or slaughtering a camel, and I'm distributing the meat among the hajis. So he went to the Imam al-Ma'sum and he asked him, did I do good on this Hajj as I was doing this? Interesting, Imam al-Ma'sum tells him that no, you have not done anything good. Rather, you have broken so many hearts on your way to the Hajj. So he says, why? All I did was Qurratan and Allah. I wasn't doing anything on purpose. I was like, slaughtering the sheep and I was distributing the meat among the Hajis. Imam says, didn't you think that, by doing this over and over and over again on every manzil, you sort of like, you make yourself in a stage that everybody else starts to envy you in a way that, oh, I wish that I had this amount of money, that I could have done the very same act that this brother is doing. You could have easily went about this a different way. Give the money to someone else, give the sheep to someone else so they can slaughter it on your behalf without the name being attached, without, that fame coming with the action. So it becomes very thorough. Sometimes we assume that we're doing good, but at the same time, we may actually be distancing ourselves from the path of the Ahmadi and from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So all that being said and done, as tonight is the night of martyrdom from Imam Sajjad alayhi salatu wassalam, let's talk a little bit about his time. Let's talk about a little bit about his circumstances and how much of virtues and fadail, mashallah, Imam Sajjad. Sometimes we talk about his knowledge. You can see the numerous books and works that we have left from him, that even today, if you just pick one book, like for example, Maqam al-Akhlaq, Sajjad, or the Risalat al-Buqul, you can talk days and months and years about these books and they will never end, because it comes from that infinite amount of knowledge that the Imam has. When we talk about his courage, mashallah, Imam Sajjad has the courage of Abdullah, he has the courage of Imam Ehsan, and the courage of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Where does it show itself? On the Majlis of Yazid in the city of Sham. Now picture yourself in Imam's position. For 20 days, you've been on the road, basically, give or take a couple of days. But in a stage that you were like chained, your entire body has been chained all the way to your neck, as the reports tell us. In that stage, you enter the city of Sham, you are withheld outside of the city for so long that they say they reached the outskirts of the city by morning, but by the time they reached the Dar al-Imara of Yazid, it was close to the Maghrib time. So for all this time you've been held, outside of the city has been decorated. All of these people who have absolutely no idea, from what background you're coming, they're just looking at you as an Khariji person. They think that you have rebelled against, the king of their time, and they're looking as someone that has to be punished. So everybody's just waiting. They have decorated the city. They're doing all of this, perhaps dancing and spreading music, and everybody's happy and clapping. At that stage, they bring the caravan of Usara, including Imam Sajjad. All that being said, when they go to the masjid of Yazid, the very first thing Yazid is doing, he has placed the beloved head of Abdullah Hussein in front of him. He's using that stick of Khayzaran. And he's being disrespectful to the head of Abdullah Hussein, the grandson of Rasulullah, the Aziz of Fatima. Imam Sajjad is saying all of this. Then Yazid tells one of the speakers, the Sheikh who was at the start of the Mara, to go on a minbar and give a sermon against Amir al-Mu'mineen, against Imam al-Hassan, and against Abu Abdullah Hussein. How worthless a person has to be a Sheikh, go on a member of Rasulullah and talk against Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Hassan, and Abu Abdullah Hussein. So that guy he goes on a member and he starts to say like random stuff about Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Hassan, and Mustafa, and Abu Abdullah Hussein. As Imam Sajjad is looking at all of this, all of a sudden he shouts at him and he says, "Aren't you afraid of Allah even for a slightest bit? ويلك أيها الخاطب لقد اشتريت مرضات المخلوق بسخط الخالق فتبرأ مقعدك من النار." You're gaining the razaya, you're gaining the contentment of the creation of the creature in comparison to the contentment of the creator of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May your place be in hell. Then he turns around and he tells Yazid, "Do you give me the permission? Do you allow me to go on these pieces of wood?" Referring to the member and referring as pieces of wood, not using the term member because the member in which is propagating anti-Islamic teachings. He says, "Do you let me to go on these pieces of wood so that I can talk to these people as well?" And Yazid knows Imam Sajjad. So he denies the permission, but the people who were there, because they see how much of the courage Imam Sajjad has shown, they keep on insisting on Yazid to let him speak. They say, "Okay, what's the worst thing he's going to say? But let him speak, give him a chance. It's good for the publicity. Let him go on the member." So Imam Sajjad goes on the member in Dar al-Mara and he starts his beautiful sermon, which I highly encourage everybody to actually recite. The very first thing he says is that he praises Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Immediately after that, he starts with the fact of introducing himself to the people of Sham. So think about it. In those times, people were reciting the Quran. They were doing the prayers. They were fasting. They were following the religious rulings according to what they actually assumed. At the same time, they had absolutely no idea about the Ahlul Bayt. As if like the entire religion was without a soul. So Imam starts, right from the front. He starts to talk about his generation and his ancestors and his father and his grandfather, and he starts to make all this connection for the people so they can realize who are they talking to. He continues and he says, "أنا ابن من صلى بملائكة السماء أنا ابن من أوحى إليه الجليل ما أوحى أنا ابن محمد المصطفى أنا ابن علي المرتضى أنا ابن من ضرب خراطيم الخالق حتى قالوا لا إله إلا الله أنا ابن من ضرب بين يدي رسول الله بسيفين وتعنى برمحين وهاجر الهجرتين وبايع البيعتين وقاتل ببدر وحنين ولم يكفر بالله طرفة عين." He continues until he says, "أنا ابن فاطمة الزهراء أنا ابن سيدة النساء أنا ابن خديجة الكبرى أنا ابن الحسين القتيل بكربلاء أنا ابن المرمل بالدماء أنا ابن من بكى عليه الجن في الظلمات. أنا ابن من ناح عليه الطيور في الهواء. As he was talking about Abu Abdullah, Hussein was saying, I am the son of the one whose body is left on the plains of Karbala. I am the son of the one whose body has been covered with the dust and the soil of Karbala. I am the one whose body has been cried over by the jinns in the Karbala. I am the son of the ones whose body has been left on Karbala, and the only ones who are mourning for him are the birds in the sky. As he's saying this, all of the people break out to tears and they start crying. So Yazid gets scared and he calls his muazzin and he says, recite the azan as Imam Sajjad is killing all of us. So he starts saying, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. The minute he says that, Imam Sajjad removes his amama, he comes down from the minbar. He says, by Allah, this Muhammad that you said, is he my grandfather or yours? Is he my grandfather or is he yours? Am I from his offspring or you are from his offspring? Then the azan continues and they go and they do what they have done. But let me talk about a little bit more. These nights, as we gather around, as we mourn for Imam Sajjad, alhamdulillah, we have brothers and sisters, they come in, everything is done in a respectful manner. But when we go to the city of Medina, when we go to the side of the Masjid al-Nabi, there is this dark place. We call it the Baqi. We call it the cemetery of Baqi. You look there, there is no light, there is no seating, there is nothing. All there is just soil and dust. Among those you see the grave of Imam Sajjad alayhi salatu wasalam, in which he made the last will to Imam al-Baqir. He said, oh my son, when I pass away, make sure you are the one who does my ghusl and kafan. Because only an imam will do the ghusl and kafan of the other imam. Make sure you do this. Make sure when you put me in the grave, I face the qibla. Make sure you open my kafan. You place my face on the ground, and you make sure my shoulders are facing the qibla. You do the talqeen. Allah yawmka yawmika ya Aba Abdullah. Here Imam al-Baqir was able to go down in the grave. He was able to shake the shoulder of Imam Sajjad and say on the talqeen. He was able to open the kafan and place the face of Imam Sajjad on the ground. But on the day of Ashura, 2 days, 3 days after Ashura, the body of Abu Abdullah Hussein, the body of Aziza Fatima, the body of the last of the Panjtan, the body of the last of the people of Al-Abba, is laying there on the plains of Karbala without any ghusl, without any kafan, without any clothes. But what a body it is. The Bani Asad, they come to offer the burial ceremony. But they are wondering about the different bodies of the Shahadat. So they say Imam Sajjad comes there by a miracle and he starts to identify the body. He says, these are the bodies of the companions. This is the body of Habib ibn Mudahir. This is the body of Zuhair. This is the body of Burai. They say, oh Imam Sajjad, there is another body, but it's far farther from these bodies. It is closer to the Euphrates River. It is by the banks of the river. Oh Imam Sajjad, we cannot identify that body. It has no hands in the body. The body is pierced with a lot of arrows. Can you tell us whose body is that? Imam Sajjad says, that's the body of my uncle, Abul Fazl Abbas, the Qamar ibn Hashim. Then they place the body of Abbas over there. Then Imam Sajjad comes back. He starts making a distinguish between the body of Bani Hashim and the companions. Then they say they take the grave for the body of Imam Hussein. But the very first thing Imam Sajjad asked for was to bring a mat made from straws, because the body was in such a condition that they could not lift the body. And at least we can say Lady Zainab could lift the body on the eve of Ashura, but here Imam Sajjad puts the body on this mat, and then he goes in the grave. They hand him the body of Abu Abdullah Hussein. He places the body on the grave. He makes sure that he faces the Qibla. He reaches down. He gives the last kiss to the cut-off blades of Imam Hussein. Then all of a sudden, the companions saw Imam Sajjad coming out from the grave, and he's searching for something. He's searching around the grave. Oh, Imam Sajjad, what is it? Is it something missing? He says, I'm looking for one piece. One piece is missing from the body. Have you guys seen the finger? Have you guys seen the finger of Imam Hussein? It should be somewhere around here. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بثنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر اللهب مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسن وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم. إلهي بحق محمد وعلي وفاطمة والحسن والحسين وتسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج والعافية والنجاة. واجعل عاقبة الأمور خيرا. Oh Allah, will ask you on behalf of Imam Sajjad to accept this majlis from us and to hasten and hasten and hasten the appearance of Imam of time and to put our name among his true followers and companions. Oh Allah, will ask you to forgive all of our past sins and to have mercy upon all of us and to have your rahmah and your special rahmah upon all of the marhumin and marhumat. Oh Allah, will ask you to give cure and complete shifa to all of those who have come down with sicknesses and illnesses, especially the mu'mineen and mu'minat around the world. Oh Allah, oh Allah, oh Allah, will ask you to protect our future generations and put them among the true muhibbeen of the Ahlul Bayt. Oh Allah, will ask you on this beloved night to give us the tawfiq of the ziyarat of the Ahlul Bayt in this dunya and their shafa in this world and the hereafter. Oh Allah, oh Allah, oh Allah, will ask you to accept this majlis from us by your mercy and to extend the rewards of this majlis to the presence and to the marhumin and marhumat and to the ulama and maraja. Oh Allah, oh Allah, oh Allah, will ask you not to take us from this world unless if you have become completely satisfied and radi in all of our actions. رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة. السلام
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. استغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله من جميع الظلم والجرم والإسراف المحسنين واسأله أن يتوب علي توبة عبد كريم منيب مسكين مستجيب ويملك بنفسه نفعا ولا يضعنا الفضل على البرية مصطفى زيد العتيق يا صاحب المواطن السيئات صل على محمد خير الورى مستجيب وغفر لنا يا ذا الأولى في هذه العشية أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد المرسلين السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين السلام عليك يا فضل الله وابن خالد والوزر الموجود السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله عبده وبقي الليل والنهار يا عبد الله لقد أظمت الرزية وجدت وعظمت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام وجدت وعظمت مصيبتك في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات فلعن الله أمة أسست أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت ولعن الله أمة دفعتكم عن مقامكم وأزالتكم عن مراتبكم التي رتبكم الله فيها ولعن الله أمة قتلتكم ولعن الله الممهدين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم ومن أشياعهم وأتباعهم وأوليائهم يا أبا عبد الله إني سلم لمن صالحكم وخالفكم بأبي أنت وأمي لقد عظم مصابي بك فأسأل الله الذي أكرم مقامك وأكرمني بك أن يرزقني طلب طارق مع إمام منصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم اجعلني عندك وجيها بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة. يا أبا عبد الله إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسن وإليك بموالاتك أو البراءة ممن قاتلك ونصب لك الحرب وبالبراءة ممن أسس أساس الظلم والجور عليكم وأبرأ إلى الله وإلى رسوله ممن أسس أساس الظلم وبنى عليه بنيانا وجرى في ظلمه وجوره عليكم وعلى أشياعكم برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم وأتقرب إلى الله ثم إليكم بموالاتكم وموالاة وليكم وبالبراءة من أعدائكم والناصبين لكم الخير وبالبراءة من أشيائهم وأسرارهم إني سر من صالحكم وحرب من حاربكم وولي لمن والاكم وعدو لمن عاداكم. نسأل الله الذي أكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم ورزقني البراعة من أعدائكم أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة وأن يثبتني عندكم قدم صدق في الدنيا والآخرة وأسأل أن يبلغني المقام المحمود لكم عند الله وإن يرزقني طلب ثاريكم مع إمام الحضور ظاهر ناطق بالحق منكم وأسأل الله بحقكم وبالشأن الذي لكم عنده أن يعطيني بمصابي بكم أفضل ما يعطي مصابا بمصيبته مصيبة ما أعظمها وأعظم رزيتها في الإسلام وفي جميع السماوات والأرض. اللهم اجعلني في مقامي هذا ممن تناله منك صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة. اللهم اجعل محياي محيا محمد وآل محمد ومماتي ممات محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إن هذا يوم تبركت به بنو أمية وابن آكلة الأكبر اللعين ابن اللعين على لسانك ولسان نبيك اللهم لعن أبا سفيان ومعاوية ويزيد بن معاوية عليهم منك اللعنة أبد الآبدين. وهذا يوم فرحت به آل زياد وآل مريم بقتلهم الحسين صلوات الله عليه. اللهم فضاعف عليهم اللعنة منك والعذاب الأليم. اللهم إني أتضرع إليك في هذا اليوم وفي موقفي هذا وأيام حياتي وبالبراءة ممن منهم واللعنة عليهم وبالموالاة لنبيك وآل نبيك عليه وعليهم السلام. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لعن الإصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وضايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعل الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم خص أنت أول ظالم باللعن مني وابلع به أولا ثم الثاني والثالث والرابع. اللهم لعن يزيد خامسا ولعن عبيد الله بن سنان وابن مرجونا وعمر بن سعد والشجاع وآل أبي سفيان وآل زياد وآل مروان إلى يوم القيامة. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين لك على مصابهم. الحمد لله على عظيم رزيتي. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين يوم الورود وثبت لي قدم صدق عندك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذين بذلوا مهجا دون الحسين عليه السلام.